It's good to have you back. Hopefully you found the concurrent sessions this morning to be interesting and productive. As you know, we've got another full agenda over lunch, and we're very fortunate to have two very prominent Canadians with us this afternoon, and I know you'll be very interested in hearing them. I wanted to just quickly introduce our head tables for this afternoon's event, and then we will have Premier McGuinty come up to the stage. So, joining us at our chairs table today is David Livingston. David, as you know, is the Chief of Staff of the Office of the Premier of Ontario. David, you shouldn't feel too shy to stand up. I hadn't thought about that applause, actually. Could you please hold your applause for others than David Livingston, although very deserving. Jeff Smith, President and CEO of Ellis Don Corporation. Thank you very much, Jeff. And Jeff will be introducing the Premier in just a couple of moments. The Honourable Peter Taptuna, who you know this morning was and still is actually Deputy Premier and Minister of Economic Development and Transportation from the Government of Nunavut. The Honourable Michael Miltenberger, Minister of Finance from the Government of Northwest Territories. Dale Richmond, of course, the Chair of the Board and the most important person in my life. Right after that, most important person is the Premier, Premier Dalton McGuinty, the Premier of Ontario. And then the Assembly of First Nations National Chief, Sean A. Chat Atleo. So good to have you here. Paula Lowndes, Vice President for Canada for Aconex. Aconex is a sponsor of this afternoon's lunch. Thank you very much, Paula. Robert Scholdice, who's Senior Partner with Borden Ladner Gervais. And of course, BLG is our Platinum Conference sponsor. Lou Serafini, President and CEO of Fengate Capital Management. And Glenna Carr, a Corporate Board Director with Ourgen and the Institute of Corporate Directors, and of course, a past President of the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships. Thank you, Glenna. At the President's table, that'd be me, Fiona Mules, Vice President, National Infrastructure Agency of course, New Zealand. Clint Davis, the Vice President, Aboriginal Affairs of TD Bank Financial Group. John Beck, Chairman and CEO of the ACON Group. Paul Dunstan, President, Plenary Group. Preeti Saran, Consul General for India. Portia Meyer, Consul General for Australia. Bill Montour, Chief Six Nations of the Grand River. Jeffrey Copenhague, National Assembly of First Nations, and Drew Fagan, Deputy Minister for Ontario Ministry of Agriculture. Sorry, Infrastructure. Please. There's no message there, Drew. You're doing a hell of a job. Well, I'm not sure. I'll have to leave that to the Premier in his remarks. That having said, please welcome our head tables. It's now my pleasure to invite Jeff Smith, President of and CEO of Ellis Don, to come up and introduce the Premier. Thank you very much.
Hey, look, I've got the Premier's speech right here. Maybe I'll just read it. Premier, it's an honor for me to introduce you today, but there's a limit. They sent me over a speech from your office, and I have to just warn you, this isn't exactly it. I just want to tell you this. These are interesting times we're living in, and my mother was a politician and a cabinet member back in David Peterson's government in the 80s, and I want to say to you all, if it's okay, and if I may be so forward, you think you all have a tough gig? You've got no idea what the political leaders of our country put up with on any given day. They work like dogs. It's a 24/7 job, as you know. They get no privacy. The pay isn't really fabulous. They don't get pensions, at least not in Ontario. They get accused and slandered and libeled every day. And I'll tell you this, virtually every single one of them are terrific people who went into politics for the right reasons to try and make the people that they represent their lives better and the jurisdictions better. And if you got a problem with that, there's my mother we're talking about, so we're just going to take it outside. Thanks for that. I'll tell you said hello, actually. So what's the roll call on Premier McGuinty? This does come partly from the speech they sent over to me. Ontario has, and this has been developed over the last 10 years by international assessment, the best schools in the English-speaking world. We've increased the number of post-secondary education spots and have cut tuitions for low and medium income students by 30%, so that there is a quality of opportunity in Ontario. Ontario now has the shortest surgical wait times in the country. And what should please everybody in this room, and as you all know, the government has rebuilt and continues to rebuild our infrastructure after decades of neglect, and has been Canada's pioneering province, and certainly the Premier has been the most enthusiastic proponent of the AFP-PPP model, investing billions. Just look at the change. I think somebody said this morning, about 6 or 7 years ago, the average age of the hospitals in Ontario was about 70 years. It's now down at 7 or 8 years. And finally, I just have to mention, people say our politicians are not courageous, and why don't they do the right thing? Everybody in the room knows, of course, that if you want to create jobs, but you want to generate the revenues needed for education and for health and for the things we need, the HST was the right thing to do. And when everybody else, the other parties, I don't want to name names, so I won't say who they were, but when the other parties were saying they were going to cancel the HST, our Premier stood up and said, no, I'll put the election on the line. It's the right thing to do. So you want political courage, it's about to come to the microphone. Oh yeah, I knew there was one more thing I wanted to say. And he came within a seat of a record third majority term. Winning is good too, right? And he won the Grey Cup. Premier McGuinty, come on up.
Thanks a million, Jeff. You're very kind and unique introduction. It's always a pleasure and a surprise when Jeff takes to the microphone. I want to thank Jeff as well for everything you do to create the jobs and build the infrastructure we need. He leads a fabulous organization, first started by his dad. I know something about that kind of an enterprise. My dad was in politics before me. And I also want to thank you, Jeff, for all the good advice you've given to me and my government over the years. Jeff made reference to some of the challenges and vicissitudes that characterize politics at the beginning of the 21st century. Those are greatly outweighed by all of the joys and privileges and honors associated with public service. Just to share with you a story, when I announced that I was stepping down, the news, as you might imagine, was received by different people in different ways. And my son was working out at a gym, and there were a couple of guys beside him. So I've been serving for 9 years as Premier and 16 years as party leader. Now, my son didn't know these guys, and they didn't know him. And one guy says to the other, because the news appeared on the TV. One guy says to the other, "Holy, McGuinty quits." The other guy says, "Who?" First guy says, "McGuinty, he quit." Second guy says, "Quit what?" So apparently the whole world does not, in fact, revolve around politicians and politics, and maybe that's a very good thing. Thank you also to Mark and Dale for your leadership at the Canadian Council of Public-Private Partnerships. I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you here today. And I was pleased to learn that my colleague Alison Redford spoke here this morning. We had a great time at the Grey Cup. We had a friendly wager. Should have put that oil on the line. You also heard, I understand, from Governor Rick Snyder. We introduced Rick to real football, longer field, fewer downs, real beer. He seemed to enjoy all three. I am really here today, my friends, to thank you. You all show tremendous commitment to serving the public good while building strong businesses that create good jobs. As builders, architects, financiers, lawyers, designers, engineers, public policy professionals, and in so many other fields, you excel at what you do. Collectively, you're making a tremendous difference, bringing your unique skills and experience to the table to help build the infrastructure that makes our communities more livable and our economy more productive. In short, your work makes Ontario stronger. Infrastructure is central to our quality of life, but most people never give it a second thought. That's understandable. Infrastructure doesn't capture people's imagination. But when it doesn't work, or if it's just not there, we're all captive to its limitations. We can't get to where we need to be or do the things we need to do in our own lives or in our own work. And in 2003, when our government came to office, infrastructure in Ontario was reaching that turning point. It was overstretched, undermaintained, and showing its years. You know, growing up in a family of 10 kids, we made everything last. The cars, the washing machine, the clothes. We never got excited when my mom said kids were going shopping because it meant rifling through your older sibling's closet. And we saved a lot of money on technology too. You're looking at my dad's garage and TV remote. Families are careful with their money, and they expect their government to invest wisely when it comes to buying or building anything new. But there comes a time when failing to invest creates an even greater financial risk. And that's where Ontario was when we came to office. Maintenant, ceci va au-delà de la simple partisanerie. Depuis plus de 20 ans, les gouvernements de toutes les affiliations politiques ont mis un frein aux dépenses en infrastructure. Mais en 2003, nous avons pris le pouvoir et nous avons été obligés de corriger la situation. This goes beyond a simple partisan issue. For more than 20 years, governments of all stripes put off spending on infrastructure. But in 2003, we were the government, and we had to fix it, because we'd be kicking even more significant costs down the road if we chose to do nothing. On top of that, our government has always been focused on getting what I call the big things right for families. That's their education, their health care, reliable electricity, all contributing to a strong economy. So it wasn't just that we needed to modernize infrastructure for its own sake. We needed modern infrastructure for the sake of so many of our goals. But on top of an infrastructure deficit, we inherited a financial deficit of some $5.6 billion. So we couldn't afford to have cost overruns when it came to building infrastructure. In fact, we really needed to stay under budget because we needed our infrastructure investments to go far. And as we got to work doing that, we realized we had a significant, valuable asset that had largely, hitherto, gone unrecognized. You. We had your business savvy, your design talent, your innovative thinking, your collaborative nature, and your goodwill and civic mindedness. So we got to work. And here's what we did. We invested in 23 new hospitals. We've built over 500 new schools. We've built 7,500 kilometers of transmission, 10,000 megawatts of new generation. We built jails, courthouses, sports facilities, and information technology projects. We've built or are rebuilding more than 820 bridges and 6,700 kilometers of roads. That's enough road to take us from here to Anchorage, Alaska. When it comes to investing in infrastructure, our government has broken all the records. Since 2003, we've invested $75 billion in infrastructure. That's $75 billion over 9 years. That compares to the $40 billion invested by the previous two governments over 13 years. This year alone, we're investing $13 billion. Compare that to the federal government. This year, they're investing $6 billion for the country. What it adds up to in Ontario is about 100,000 jobs per year that our government keeps creating through our investments in infrastructure. During the recession, these investments were more important than ever. And I want to thank all of you for helping to get projects going quickly. That meant families kept a paycheck coming in, and together we built things that will strengthen Ontario for decades to come. Just as important as what we built, it's how we built it. Together, with mutual understanding, mutual respect, and mutual benefit. Previous governments had looked at infrastructure on a year-by-year basis. This created uncertainty for our hospitals, our schools, our universities, our colleges, and for you. We were making any sensible capital planning impossible. This was, as they say, no way to run a railroad. In 2005, we developed Ontario's first ever multi-year infrastructure plan. It was a plan the public sector and the private sector could believe in. It was a plan that harnessed the powerful synergy that flowed from our two sectors working together. It was a plan to build infrastructure in an intelligent, orderly, and efficient way. It was a plan that provided for future buildings to be maintained. Simply put, it was a plan that allowed everybody to make plans. It was good for public institutions, good for business, good for Ontarians. Because when the public sector provides clarity and certainty, then the private sector can step up and deliver solid financing, disciplined project management, and design innovation. In short, you had the certainty to get projects done on time and on budget. And the results say it all. Infrastructure Ontario is managing 79 capital projects valued at $30 billion using our AFP method. And thanks to your hard work, the program has consistently come in under budget. And the world is noticing. IO has received government delegations from the US, Scotland, Denmark, Japan, Chile, India, South Korea, and many others. I can't begin to tell you how proud we are of the work that we are doing at Infrastructure Ontario. It's an extraordinary organization, and it's getting great results for Ontarians. In keeping with the values that inform its work, IO has proven to be respectful, resourceful, results-driven, and responsible. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize and commend one individual in particular. He's presently my Chief of Staff, but before that, he headed up IO. I want to thank David Livingston for so capably translating our government's vision into reality. Thank you, David. And I want to thank the new leadership, Bert Clark, for building on the foundation that David has laid for all of us. What's even more important than the reputation we're building around the world is that the impact is seen and felt right across Ontario. Ontario's AFP process is ensuring that projects vital to job creation, like the Air Rail Link spur at Pearson Airport and the Windsor-Essex Parkway, they're both being completed on time and on budget. At a time when Ontario is confronting lingering uncertainty in the global economy, it's important that our government continues to support jobs and growth by building infrastructure. And it's important that we deliver that infrastructure in a way that is smart for taxpayers. And something else is important too. Every time Ontarians see a hospital being expanded, or a school being built, or a new pipe being laid beside the road, or new transit being installed, it lifts us up a little bit. It reassures us that we're on track as an economy and a society, that we're fulfilling a fundamental responsibility owed by the older generation to the younger one, that we never stop working hard to build a bright future for our children and our grandchildren. Our new 10-year plan, we call it Building Together, will continue infrastructure investments for years to come, including the largest public transit infrastructure investment in Canada today. That's 4 public transit projects in Toronto worth over $8.4 billion, which will hit the market in the coming months. So our good work will continue, and through our consultations, we will keep finding ways to improve the process. My friends, I want to say a few words in particular about how you've delivered significant value in healthcare. Because in doing so, you contributed to the most valuable thing any of us have. That's our own good health and that of our families. All told, to date, the AFP model has been used for 38 healthcare projects, such as the Kingston General Hospital, the London Health Sciences Centre, the Ottawa Cancer Centre, the North Bay Regional Health Centre, the Sioux Area Hospital, and the Woodstock General Hospital. The work of building those hospitals was completed on time and ahead of schedule, which meant doctors, nurses, and health professionals could get to work sooner, making people better. New hospitals have more space for MRI machines and other technologies. They have new clinics providing the most up-to-date therapies. They've got bigger emergency rooms to handle growing communities. Our new hospitals are more comfortable for patients and more welcoming for families. And healthcare professionals like working in them, so we keep attracting the best and the brightest. In fact, having more and better hospitals has helped add 4,000 more doctors since 2003, as well as over 15,000 more nurses. And again, there's that important intangible for Ontarians. When we walk into a modern hospital space, it lifts us up a little bit. It inspires our confidence in our healthcare system. It reassures us that our hard-earned tax dollars are being put to good use. My friends, I'm proud of all that we've accomplished, and I'm grateful to have been able to work with you. And I hope that in the years ahead, when you drive by those hospitals, or those college buildings, or those courthouses, or many places where you left an enduring mark, that you feel a tremendous sense of pride. And that you point to those buildings, point them out to your family, your kids, your friends, and say, I built that. Take pride in knowing that what you built will be here serving Ontarians, helping them reach their own dreams, things they can be proud of for many years to come. You've left a great legacy, and I thank you for that. You know, I've got this theory about people. There are a few of us who aspire to be the wealthiest individual in the cemetery. I'll grant you that. But I think most of us actually want to make a difference. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing for others? So we kind of go through 3 phases in life, I would argue. When you first strike out on your own, well, you're consumed by satisfying your needs. You got to get shelter, you got to get food, you got to get a job, you got to get income. And then as you make progress, then you're focused on your wants. It'd be nice to have a flat screen TV, nice to have a nice car, nice vacation, big house. But I think ultimately at the end, what we really want to know is, did we make a difference? Did we only occupy space, or did we make a difference for others? Here's my wish for all of you. When you go to bed at night, and the house is quiet, and your head's on the pillow, and you're alone with your thoughts, I want you to get that powerful sense of satisfaction that comes from knowing you're making a real and lasting difference for others. Now, on behalf of 13 million Ontarians, I thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Thank you.
Premier McGuinty's been known often as the education premier, but to many of us in this room, you are the infrastructure premier. And you said thank you to the industry and what we've done for you. But what you have to realize, it's that your leadership and the support of your government that facilitated all of this. Not only as an example for Canada, but for the world. And I believe your legacy will be how this expertise that you facilitated gets exported to the world and what it does for this country. So on behalf of the council, its board of directors, sponsors, and members, we're going to make a donation to Habitat for Humanity.
Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ronald. Thank you.